Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's County-Wide.
Welcome to County-Wide. I'm Kyle Benedict. Today we're talking with the Oak Creek Watershed Council. Today is Cinco de Mayo, and kind of a day where a lot of people head out to the lakes, creeks, rivers, just out on our national forest, and people really like to get out and enjoy the nice spring weather. And it's kind of one of the first big holidays, I guess, that of this season where people just like to get outside, and a lot of times you see a ton of people out there, especially in Oak Creek Canyon. That's kind of what we're focusing on today. And here to talk about that is the Executive Director of the Oak Creek Watershed Council, Maureen McCormick, as well as Oak Creek Ambassador Max Tapia, here to talk about just a lot of the work that you guys are doing. There's a ton of stuff going on in there. You guys are very, very busy. Marie, you were in here back in, I believe, December, talking about everything that was going on last year. So we thought we'd have you back to talk about this year. So first off, quickly go over what the Oak Creek Watershed Council, kind of the main goal and your mission, and then also talk about the Ambassador Program.
Sure, thank you, Kyle. Yeah. Appreciate it. The Oak Creek Watershed Council is an environmental nonprofit dedicated to maintaining a standard of excellence for watershed stewardship and preserving the integrity of Oak Creek and all of its tributaries. The Oak Creek Ambassador Program was brought about 3-4 years ago in collaboration with the Forest Service, trying to get boots on the ground work done, talking to people on a one-to-one basis without that kind of stigma that the law enforcement has. So being that friendly face out on the creek, encouraging people to practice leave no trace ethics, and also in tandem picking up a lot of trash. So
now, if you could maybe recap last year, what did you guys find in terms of trash? How much are we looking at here?
Last year, I'll just do a recap of all the 3 years we've been doing this.
Okay.
Since 2013, we've had the ambassadors have spoken with over 25,000 people in person for over 5,700 hours. They've picked up over 13,000 pounds of trash, 1,100 pounds of feces, that includes human and dog, as well as over 400 diapers.
Wow.
And so it's a lot of trash, unfortunately, but the creek, after they do it, looks great.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I think a lot of people hear about, maybe not so much, I don't know if we heard about last year, but E. coli, that kind of goes hand in hand with Oak Creek, and you hear about that a couple times a year, at least once a year. But it seems like a lot of what you guys are doing is kind of, would you say that's getting rid of that issue of E. coli, or is that always going to be there? What would you say with that? Because, it seems like there's an increase of visitors to Oak Creek Canyon every single year. Once the word gets out there, it's a beautiful place. Once the word gets out there and people from Phoenix come up and enjoy it, then they passed out information along to other people in Phoenix. So are we seeing kind of making progress with that issue?
Possibly. E. coli is a naturally occurring bacteria that occurs in everyone's intestinal tract. It's really just an indicator species for the presence of other types of pathogens, diseases like cryptosporidium, things that make you have gastrointestinal issues. And so we do water sampling in Oak Creek, and we've seen very few exceedances this year, actually. I know I spoke about one in Chavez Creek, but since the winter, whenever I spoke with you in December, we haven't really seen many exceedances because the water is so cold right now that that E. coli doesn't really grow unless it's basically the temperature of your insides.
Oh, wow.
97 degrees.
Okay, so once kind of the weather gets a little bit warmer and everything.
Yeah, it'll come out of dormancy and start making an appearance.
Okay, so just the start of May 5th today, so far this year, what work have you guys been doing in the canyon and just along Oak Creek?
This year?
Yeah, this year. You guys are probably kicking off that spring. Spring is here, so I'm sure you're going to start seeing a lot of people, and maybe that's when most of the issues start arising in the canyon?
Yeah, actually, before we started the show, we showed you a pretty awesome video of folks basically shoulder to shoulder down at Midgley Bridge. I think someone mentioned when they saw it, it looked like a swarm of cockroaches.
Yeah, it did. I mean, you couldn't
It
even
was
see.
crazy.
There's all of these flat red rock down there right along the creek
Yeah.
underneath Midgley Bridge, and you couldn't see any of that. I
No.
mean, there were probably, I don't know, about 1,500 people down there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Easy.
it was amazing. So Max, as kind of an ambassador, and Marie mentioned that's kind of the boots on the ground, and you guys are the ones actually face to face with these visitors and picking up trash. When you come into contact with a group of people down there, I mean, what's kind of the message that you're pushing? How do you approach getting the word out that, hey, I mean, it's a simple message, pick up your trash, but how do you relay that to visitors?
Well, I think everyone comes because they want to swim in the water and they want to, like, you know, cool off. It's the summer, and if you're not going to be able to swim in the water because it's so full of E. coli and you can get super sick from it, like, people aren't going to be coming to Oak Creek anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you lay it out like that.
And you think about, like, the tourism, and if the water is, like, unable to swim in the future, then we could lose all tourism in Sedona. So I think people need to think about that more.
Now, you guys brought here into studio kind of a model of kind of some of the things you're pulling out of the canyon. Could you, Max, maybe go take us through some of these? You have plastic there, glass there, and let our viewers and listeners kind of know how long it takes for these to decompose.
Yeah, so I have this at the ranger station a lot at the visitor center. So we talk to lots of people about picking up their trash, being responsible on the trails. So we do plastics first. We talk about it. It's 450 years, so plastic's around for that long, and that's only until it's no longer recognizable as a bottle. Okay. The plastic, like the tiny pieces of plastic that get into animals, like, and kill them, will be around for, like, a lot longer than that.
Geez, so that time's just to get what we're seeing here, basically
broken down, and then it's tiny pieces of plastic in the soil.
Okay, what about glass? We have glass here next. How long does that take?
So glass we put 1 million years because it's a quartz crystal, so it'll actually just be there sitting in the ground forever unless it's like a bunch of pressure breaks it down. So we find glass and it just has, like, all kinds of bugs in them, and they've been buried in the ground for so long, and even glass that has, like, moss and green stuff growing in it with the sunlight that comes through.
Okay, now the next one here is aluminum, and I imagine you guys find a lot of that. I mean, beer cans, soda cans, people just down there picnicking or partying or whatever it is. How long does something like that, aluminum, take to decompose?
So we put on here 80 to 200 years, and it's 80 to 200 because of the environment. Since we're in a drier environment, it would be closer to 200 years. If you had water coming through, it would break down the aluminum super fast, and it's a metal, so it would go back into the environment. But we're in the desert, so that stuff sticks around for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's something that's important to kind of note, our climate. I mean, would you say in a desert environment, something a little bit more dry, that affects how long it takes some of these materials to break down? Does the climate have a big part to do with that?
Yeah, I think so, especially with food waste, like banana peels and orange peels. When you talk to people about food waste, it's going to be out there for a long time because it just dries up. And when people say, you know, animals are going to eat it, animals don't eat your banana peels or your orange peels. That's like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear you guys talk about food waste because, you know, all of this other stuff, it's almost, I mean, we have plastic, we have aluminum, stuff that's just not natural, really. I mean, you have plastic out there that obviously clearly doesn't fit out in that environment, but you think an apple and orange peel, that's something that's grown outside, and, you know, just to try and see why people might, you know, think it's not as big of an issue as throwing an aluminum can out the window. You know, you'd probably just think, oh, it's a banana peel, but no, this takes a long time to decompose, and it's really important. I think getting the visual aspect here, we have in studio all of this stuff laid out to kind of just paint the picture of what they're finding out there in the canyon, and I think a lot of this stuff is what, you know, many of us take out there with us when we visit the creek or the lake or whatever it is. So, okay, well, we got to take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk about a 3D model here that they have on just kind of the water flows in the canyon, as well as talk about some of the funding coming up, and there's also a way that you, if you have a group and would like to set up a cleanup date, you can do that by contacting them. Good phone number, 928-554-5460. This is Countywide. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
We've known for years that this is the #1 cause of lung cancer, smoking. That's why the Surgeon General issued this warning. But do you know the #1 cause of lung cancer for non-smokers It's in this room. You can't see it or smell it. It's radon. Radon is an invisible radioactive gas that seeps inside your home from underground. It can build up to dangerous levels without notice. Now the Surgeon General has issued another lung cancer warning. And whether you smoke or not, breathing radon can cause lung cancer. That's why you need to have your home tested. Protect your family. Call 1-800-SOS-RADON. Heed the warning. Have your home tested, because radon problems can be fixed.
Oh, look, a redhead. Staring contest. You still got it. I know.
Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
They were looking right at us. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
You willing to step out of the vehicle for me?
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Welcome back to Countywide. I'm Kyle Benedict, sitting down with the Oak Creek Watershed Council, and Executive Director Marie McCormick here is in studio, as well as Oak Creek Ambassador Max Tapia. And Marie, before we went to break, she talked about last year, over the last 3 years actually, all of the amount of trash that they're pulling out of Oak Creek. And we talked about with Cinco de Mayo being today and kind of kicking off that whole season of just recreating outside in general, whether it's Oak Creek, the Verde River, out in the National Forest, lakes. Just people like to get outside at this time of year, and for a good reason. And we're not trying to keep people from going outside and enjoying the water, enjoying this. We're just trying to, make sure people are responsible, and we're all doing our part to kind of preserve these areas that we're so fortunate to live near. So we talked about, before break, Max, Oak Creek Ambassador, was talking about going through some of the items that they're finding, the items of trash that they're finding down there in Oak Creek Canyon. And we talked about plastic, glass, aluminum. We have paper here, cigarettes, feces. We didn't really talk about that. You guys are finding a lot of animal and human feces. Are you guys finding a lot of that stuff down there?
Yeah, we do find a lot of human feces, and it's super nasty. So usually we carry around buckets and pickers, and we're picking up trash. And we don't really want to throw the feces in with all the cans, because we do separate out recycling. Okay. So I typically carry a bag around that is my poop bag that I put human and dog poop into, which is really gross. Yeah. And it's full of toilet paper, everything.
So when you're out just educating the public, Marie, how do you go about, telling people to pick up their pet waste? Are there stations with bags and trash cans throughout the canyon, or I guess what's the best way to kind of get people to stop doing that?
We have 30 pet waste stations that are put in the front of trailheads all across the watershed. We have them all the way from Kachina Village all the way down to the Cornville area. Oh, wow. And there's also another, I think 22. So the ambassadors actually went and mapped every single pet waste station within the entire watershed. So there are 52 known pet waste stations. So we did it as a way to find gaps in that and try to encourage people to use dog waste stations, just pick up after your pet. Yeah. And yourself.
Yeah, yourself is included in that. So food waste here. We mentioned apples, banana peels, and that's just the issue with that is it takes a long time to decompose. But is that harming wildlife at all? Is that changing the way wildlife go after their food? What are you guys seeing with that?
I think the raccoons could be relying on it now, because they come down and it's a constant food source for them. So then they increase in numbers, and they all come from the surrounding areas just to hang next to Oak Creek. Yeah. And they're primarily the largest part of the E. coli comes from raccoons.
Okay, well, we hear about a couple times you have people feeding, this wildlife, bears, whether it's, or just, you know, small little rodents. People, if you set food out, and we hear about it, bears wandering into neighborhoods, and they're either being, you know, tranquilized and relocated or euthanized even, and we hear about that kind of issue with people feeding wildlife, and then they start wandering and get comfortable in kind of around humans, and that's not a good thing. And I imagine it's the same idea when you leave food behind after you're gone. So up here we also have, you guys brought in a 3D diagram of the, or 3D model of the, what is this, the Oak Creek Watershed?
Yeah, the green line shows the whole Oak Creek watershed, so it's a pretty large area. And then also it's 3 times relief, so we have a hole down here at the bottom, so when we pour water on it, it flows down into the hole, which is the Verde River.
Okay. And now, what do you guys use this for? Who are you guys showing this off to?
Children really like this because we put coffee grounds into it, and then we pour the water through, so the water gets really brown and nasty as it comes through the canyon and also through Sedona. And then by the time it's reaching the Verde River, it's like almost black. Wow. So that really like enforces the idea to children that if you do leave some trash here and we sprinkle some coffee grounds, or you don't pick up after your dog, we sprinkle some coffee grounds and we send the water through, it gets nasty, and they get the point really well. Yeah, you get that kind of exaggerated image in your head of what's going on there. So, Marie, I know education, we've talked about a little bit today already, but education is kind of a huge part of what you guys do. You guys are, of course, the boots on the ground picking up the trash, but just educating the public of the danger of leaving things behind. And when people, Max mentioned showing these models off and kind of how everything works to children and school kids and maybe even students at NAU or college kids or just people in general, the public. If people are out on their own picking up trash because they see maybe an area where there's a bunch of plastic cups or there's beer cans or soda cans, and they pick up this trash, do you guys want to know exactly how much trash these people are pulling out of the canyon, or is that something you want to keep track of?
We would love to know how much trash folks are taking out of the canyon. We're actually able to use that information as matching funds on our grants that we get. So the amount of time you spend in the canyon picking that trash up, the mileage you use, as well as the number of pounds, we get to use that information to actually garner more funds for grants that we get to fund guys like Max and our other ambassadors to do great work in the canyon. Okay, and how many ambassadors do you guys have right now? We have 2 ambassadors right now as of October 2015. Okay. Prior to that, we had 6 in 2015, the summer, and then the last 2 years in 13 and 14, we had 4. Okay, so is that number are you guys gonna increase the number of ambassadors as you kind of get into this, I don't know if you call it busy season? Well, we don't have the funding to do that number of ambassadors at this point. The idea behind sort of seed funding the ambassador program is to start really big and then kind of whittle it down, so then we can employ interns and volunteers using the ambassadors as kind of those leaders to inspire all those cleanups and outreach events. Okay, great. Well, on that funding note, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll touch on a little bit more and dive a little bit more into detail on the funding and how the Watershed, Oak Creek Watershed Council gets that funding. They're also looking for a grant writer, so we'll touch on that when we come back from our break. Countywide will be back in just a couple minutes.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. Even though we are one of the most food-rich countries in the world, 15 million children don't know where their next meal is coming from. This is unacceptable, and something the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks is working to solve. Instead of accepting that our country lets billions of pounds of surplus food go to waste every year, Feeding America has made it their mission to help families in need by rescuing this food. Through food pantries and meal programs, the nationwide network of food banks provides more than 3 billion meals, serving virtually every community in the United States, including yours. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank by visiting feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back to Countywide. Just a couple minutes left in the program. We're talking with the Oak Creek Watershed Council. Good phone number for you for more information or how you can help and get involved, 928-554-5460, or a good website with a ton of information on there, oakcreekwatershed.org, oakcreekwatershed.org. Executive Director Marie McCormick here, Oak Creek Ambassador Max Tapia here in studio. Marie, you were talking about funding before we left. What do you guys, how's the rest of this year looking with funding, and what are you guys doing to kind of increase that funding?
So we've historically been funded by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality for the last 3 years. That grant would have ended at the end of this month. However, we got a 3-month extension. It doesn't really fully fund the program until the end of August, but it partially does. We have a little bit of funding from some other sources at this point, as well as fundraisers we've done like Arizona Gives Day. But we really need funding to continue this program. It's absolutely essential. Without that money, we don't have folks down in the canyon.
Yeah, I mean, you have 2 ambassadors right now, and that's, I mean, covering that whole canyon and with all the visitors that we talked about. And then you threw out the numbers at the beginning of the show of all the amount of trash that you guys are finding down there. I mean, that's a tough job for 2 people to kind of do, and then on top of picking up trash, educating the public that they come into contact with. Talk about real quick this this cleanup date that you can set up. I mean,
sure.
So if I have a group of people, I can call you and say, hey, we're interested in picking up trash this day. Is that
I would actually prefer if someone emailed us.
Okay.
If you go onto our website, you can actually go onto volunteer local or voluntourism or corporate or business volunteer. You sign up and say, like, for example, we're going to have a cleanup with REI on May 14th. You contact us, let us know how many folks are going to come out. We provide the leadership, direction, and all the equipment and supplies. And you get to come out in Oak Creek, have a great time, hang out with some folks, and do something great for the canyon.
Yeah, that's all. I'm sure at the end of it, there's just that sense of, that feel-good feeling after, you really did something to make a difference. So, okay, and you guys are looking for a grant writer, right? Am I correct in saying that?
We did just post an announcement for a grant writer. It's a part-time position, and, salary is negotiable. So if you're interested, you can go onto our website under About Us, and you can click on the job announcement.
Okay, perfect. Again, that website, oakcreekwatershed.org, phone number 928-554-5460. Marie and Max, thank you guys for being in today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Max, keep up that ground game, right? Keep picking up all that trash and educating the public. That's what's key about it. So again, oakcreekwatershed.org for more information on any of this stuff, or just to kind of get involved in the with the council and just everything, all the great work they're doing. So that's going to do it for today's Countywide. This is Countywide. We'll see you next time.